A warm welcome to Luc Princen.
Well, being from the socialist capital in the Netherlands, welcome comrades. I'm going to be talking about WooCommerce and how we can scale that up to greater heights. Jaap mentioned a bit about me. I've been working with WordPress for over 15 years. I'm developing WooCommerce plugins together with my talented colleagues at Wooping. We also do we handle a couple of clients together with my business partner Remy on work on the Winkle. I am married to a lovely wife. We have a very special child, which we lovingly call the little dictator. And when I'm not in front of a screen, I'm usually like walking through nature or running a D&D game of sorts. But today is, well, actually it's a story about bookkeeping. Sorry I lured you in thinking this was about WooCommerce. Let's start with imagining that all of us own a brick and mortar store, like an actual physical thing. Then let's also imagine that every order you make, every receipt you get of that order, you save in this little binder. But you also save your product brochures, your legal texts, your newsletters in that same binder. And it's all sort of hustled together in there. What would happen if you take that binder to your accountant for your quarterly reviews? He would kick you out, probably. Yet this is the way WooCommerce has been working for the last, well, actually since its inception. It has been saving your orders together with blog posts and products and pages and whatever other custom post type you have on your store. And this is a problem because an order isn't the same as a product. If you create a product, you expect people to visit that page, click on the Add to Cart button, and order that product. So how can a product be the same as an order in the database? Let's do a little raise hands here. Who of you has heard this sentence? If you have more than 1,000 products in your shop, you should consider Magento. Who of you has said this to clients? Be honest. Okay. I'm sad to report for the people who raised their hands up the second time that you're false. Twice. Because, first of all, 1,000 products is something that WooCommerce could probably easily handle. WordPress, as it turns out, is very good as a content management system. It's great for creating content and serving it out to customers. The real bottleneck in this is your orders. Orders are not content. If you have a decent shop, you may have, I don't know, 100, 500 products or so. You have a couple of pages, you have a couple of blog posts, and sure, every year you will create new blog posts, and there will be more blog posts on your store, and every year you will get some new products, and they will accrue on your store. But if you do a good job, your orders will instantly exceed the content you created. That is what you're doing this for. And then over time, eventually, all of those orders are now in your WP post and post meta tables. Again, they're the same as a product, a page, and a blog post. Now, WooCommerce recognized this bottleneck fairly early on. Ever since like 2016, it's been trying to solve this problem. It's had different goes at it, and eventually it landed on high performance order storage. We'll get into the nitty-gritty a bit later, but before I can tell you why it's a good thing, I first need to give you like a little bit, a database 101, if you will. And this is a gross oversimplification, but in a database, a number is good and a text is bad for querying. This is as simple as I can make it, and if you can imagine, like this kind of works for people too, right? If I have the question, where in Moby Dick do they get onto the ship? I can answer that question in two different ways. I can say, well, it's at last, passage paid and luggage safe, we stood on board of the schooner. That's where they get on the ship. Or I can say on page 66. You can tell me which one is easier for you to get.
The last one I know, but the right one doesn't make sense.
No, that's fair, but if somebody wishes you to find the answer to this, okay. If you ask this question to a database, it basically has a very simple operation. It makes a simple query going to the WP post table and asking for a post with order ID 66. And Emperor Palpatine can smile an agreement. If you get a more complex query than this, in the old situation, like give me all the orders with a total lower than 100 euros, which could happen, especially in the admin section, we have to do a multitude of queries actually. We have to first go to the WP post table. We have to query on post type shop order. Again, this is text. And we have to go into the post meta table and query for the order total to be less than 100. Again, text. So this query works. It's fairly readable. It's fairly simple. It's been working like this for ages. Why is this important? The answer is scale. If you perform that same query over and over again on each page request, if you perform a multitude of those queries over and over again on each page request for all of your visitors, suddenly that database starts to sweat a bit and starts to, it starts to clog up. That first query, this one, is maybe a couple of milliseconds longer than the one I'm going to show you later, but it is still a millisecond extra that you accrue over time over a whole bunch of queries. And there's been a lot of solutions for this. Some people will say, oh, caching, that's the way to go. If we cache these queries, then we don't have to go to the database, and the database will be fine. You're right, but caching doesn't work on WP admin. Caching doesn't work when you have products in your cart. Caching doesn't work when you are logged in. So many reasons why you shouldn't want to use caching for this problem. Cache is always treating a symptom, it's never treating the disease. Other people might say, oh, indexing. We can index the database tables. And by the way, a database index is exactly the same as an index in a book. It just says the whale is on page number 205, 206, and 207. It's basically converting strings into numbers again. So yes, absolutely use indexing. I'm a big fan, and you can definitely see big gains in terms of scalability on your database if you start indexing those post and post meta tables. But this talk isn't about indexing, so I suggest you, figure out how to do that yourself. But we came to talk about HPOS, a high performance order storage, a collection of 4 new tables in WooCommerce. They've been there they've been there for a couple of years, but they've become the default since October 2023, so last year. Those tables are WC orders meta, WC order addresses, and WC order operational data. We're going to be diving into each of these and what they do later. Just to give you an example of what these tables do in terms of scalability, WooCommerce actually did a couple of tests with this new setup on an empty store, and they basically told WooCommerce, make 1,000 orders in the old situation and the new situation, and the results are pretty clear. In the post table, it took 80 seconds. In the new tables, it took 15 seconds. Now you might say, when am I ever going to have to create 1,000 orders all at once within a minute? Well, for instance, if you run subscriptions and all those subscriptions renew each month. So there's plenty of cases for this, but that's not really the point of this benchmark. This benchmark is again to show you that these new tables scale. I'm going to get a sip of water. So, those tables, WC orders, it saves our order ID, the one that we communicate to our customers, the one which we look up orders under. It saves us price information, and it saves us certain payment information like a transaction ID or a transaction status, actually. Order addresses is pretty self-explanatory. It saves your billing and shipping address. Operational data saves stuff like have the emails already been sent, have the coupons been sent out, and a new one I thought was interesting, on which version of Woo was this order created, which might be interesting in the future. They're actually thinking about what do we do next? What if we have to do another migration like this? How will we know which orders were formed under which version? And then it's WC orders meta, which basically with a bare bones installation doesn't contain that much interesting information. It indexes all of your addresses, so it just has sort of a quick reference to those. But these are mainly made for custom plugin values. So finally, ever since WooCommerce's conception, we now have structure. We have a ordered ledger that we can take to the accountant and say, look, these are all my orders. So what happens if we run that same query again? Give me all orders with a total lower than 100. Well, actually, it's pretty simple now, and it's a query based on a number, not on a string. So I'm hearing you all think, well, this sounds good. How do I enable this? You have to go into your WooCommerce installation under the advanced settings, under features, and you will find a checkbox saying enable high performance order storage, or in Dutch, krachtige opslag van bestellingen, which is you might also get this warning, one incompatible plugin detected. We're going to talk about that a bit later. By the way, you don't need to do this if you have a store that is younger than October 2023, because it's been enabled by default. Now you might say, okay, they're doing an entire talk about a checkbox, great. How deep does this rabbit hole go? Seems fairly cut and dry. Well, we're going to talk about what happens next, because if you click that checkbox, migrations start to happen in the background, because all of those orders in your post table will now have to be migrated to their new tables. So, first bit of advice, always use a staging site. You don't want to bother your live server with this amount of content, with this amount of lag. And the good thing about these order tables is that they're now separate tables. Who here has had trouble with a store that they're administering and moving over content from a staging site to a production site and couldn't because there were orders in the way? 1, 2, 3, everyone. Great. Now you can just, select all the tables starting with WC order and say export, and you'll be fine. As long as your users are fine as well. And one thing I should add, which has become painfully clear last week, if you have subscriptions, you need to re-trigger their action scheduler, things, otherwise they won't subscribe anymore. Action scheduler is actually a good segue, because this migration from one table to the other is happening with this piece of technology, which has been part of WooCommerce for a while now. finally, there is a sort of modern take on the ancient, decrepit WP cron system. Action Scheduler works really well for background tasks. I would suggest that if you have no idea if this is the case or not, if you're on a decent host, you probably shouldn't worry about this. But always check if WP cron is handling Action Scheduler or a server cron is handling Action Scheduler, because that makes all the difference in the world. With WP cron, you'll be waiting for your next visitor to come trigger the next batch of orders to be migrated, and that's something you just don't want. Okay, we've enabled our checkbox, even though we got a little warning saying there's a problem with a plugin. Let's get to troubleshooting plugins, because this is actually where the bones of the whole operation is. This is going to be the hardest part, and it's fairly obvious to see why. What we're doing here is basically open heart surgery on your WooCommerce store. You're taking orders that were once posts and moving them over to new tables. If you find plugins that are still not compatible with HPOS, reach out to those plugin developers. Ask them if they have this on the roadmap. If they don't, it's been a year. It might be time to consider newer options. If they do, great. Ask them if there's any way you can help them in, because otherwise this is just going to be, this transition is going to take forever. One way you can help them and help yourself in the meantime is with Composer patches. What you can do with Composer, if you load that plugin in over Composer, is you can you can basically fix the problem for them, create a patch in Git, and load them in via Composer without ever touching the main plugin itself. So the main plugin is still updatable. You need to check it if it's working still, but it's still updatable. But honestly, if they haven't touched HPOS in the last year and they're suddenly coming out with an update, usually it's going to be HPOS compatibility. The best thing about this is you now have a patch of that faulty plugin that you can send to the plugin developer. Say, here, I fixed it for you. Please update your plugin. One big plugin in this space that is going to be a major problem for you if you have it enabled is the WooCommerce Legacy API. This is never going to get HPOS compatibility. It is basically all the old WooCommerce APIs combined into a new plugin. And if a service requires you to run this plugin, well, you're not screwed. I'm going to give you a solution, but you can't wait for that plugin to eventually update. I'm going to do some calling out now. Is there anybody here from SendCloud? No? Okay. Are there people getting nervous? SendCloud has a decent WooCommerce plugin. It has HPOS compatibility. It is, by the way, one of the major shipping providers in the Netherlands and I think the EU as well. But they still rely on the ancient legacy API in WooCommerce to sort of do their back channeling for them. So even though they have a plugin which is perfectly compatible, you still can't run HPOS together with the legacy API. You have to do like you have to save the orders in both the post meta table and the orders table, which seems redundant. What you can do with this is just look at what we actually did for the clients that came to us that had SendCloud enabled, is look at the access logs and figure out which endpoints they were talking to. In this case, they were talking to products and they were talking to orders. And what we basically did was copy that code, rewrite it to use the new order tables, and disable the API plugin. The endpoints are still there, they still work, but now everything is running regularly. I've been told I have not that much time left, but we're diving into custom code here a bit. So what if you have a plugin running for WooCommerce, what if you have a theme with some custom capabilities? How will you deal with these changes? Well, obviously, these two functions are not going to work anymore. We're going to have to replace them with WC get orders. Things like update post meta. You're going to have to replace by actually enabling or igniting the order object and then using update metadata. A good rule of thumb here is if you're working with Woo, make sure you use the Woo functions and classes. This also very much applies to products, by the way, because there's been talk in WooCommerce to also move them to new tables. So if you don't want to do this again, I certainly don't want to do this talk in 2 years. Make sure this also works for your products. You can easily check if the new tables are enabled, although the function is slightly clunky. But if they are enabled, you can basically apply your patches there. And otherwise, it is a question of just going through your code. WooCommerce has a page up for this transition. I'll link to it later, but it's a page with a bunch of these regexes, which actually work really well, just throwing it into your code and figuring out where you're addressing any of the post tables. If they are also mentioning shop order, then obviously you should replace them. There's another big part of this is meta boxes on the admin screen. They don't return a WP post object anymore. They now return an order object. How much time? 10 minutes. Oh, okay. Easy. So, we can go a little bit deeper than that. I've shown you how you can change up your custom code. I've shown you how to patch other people's code. What if you now want to build off of this? We now have these new tables. Basically under all of the veneer is one single filter in WooCommerce that tells WooCommerce to use these tables instead of those tables. That is all it is. It is a single filter. And that filter is talking to a data store. A data store is an object in WooCommerce that handles, well, anything with the database for that particular object. So an order or a product or a subscription or whatever. And all HPOS is at the moment is a single filter pointing from that data store to that data store. But it's an object, it's a class. We can expand that. We can hook into that same filter and create our own class that extends the original order table data store. And we can do whatever the hell we want with all this data. We can add tables. We can merge this somehow with options, with not posts, but we can do a whole lot more with these classes. But I fear that with that, we've also hit a bit of rock bottom. Like this is as deep the rabbit hole goes. There's a ton more you can do with these tables. The main benefit, obviously, is scalability for your store. Your orders can basically grow, well, I wouldn't say indefinitely, but it should be easy to get hundreds of thousands of orders in those tables, and that database shouldn't be cracking the sweat. These slides, some code snippets, and some migration scripts will all be up on this website. I'll make sure that it's posted on Monday, so you can get cracking right away. And I wonder if you all have questions.
Questions?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
So when you enable the high performance tables, there is a compatibility mode.
Yeah.
That in my understanding just does the operation twice on
Correct.
both. So the question is, when is it safe to disable the compatibility mode, and if maybe all the plugins support the high performance tables, but maybe there is some custom code that does not.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any type of warning while we are in compatibility
Yeah,
mode?
your custom code is going to not get a warning unless you have, unless it's a plugin and it contains the WooCommerce comment code at the start of the plugin file. So that might be a hard one. You're going to have to want to comb through your own custom code to figure out, is this safe? But if you have no plugins that are throwing a fuss, if you've come through your personal code, then it should be fine. As a matter of fact, I would encourage you to run another query, and that is to destroy all your shop orders in the post table, because you'll really start to see some database gains at that point. We did this for a fairly large store, and the post and post meta table, when we removed the old records, it went from, I believe, like 3 million records in the post meta table to like 500,000. Yeah. It can really, really do something for the speed of your database. So, short answer, if you're not getting any warnings and you've come through your personal code, you can absolutely release compatibility mode without problems.
More questions? Yes.
Thanks for the talk, Luc.
You're welcome.
Another thing that adds to the database is special comment type, that's order nodes, right? Is that covered as well, or is that still in the comments table and comment meta?
That's a good question. I believe it's in the comment meta. It's in the order meta. The initial customer remarks, I believe. But the comments, you mean in the WordPress backend, where you basically add new comments. It's a good question. I don't know, actually. I've never used that feature before. I'm afraid it's in the comments table, but to be fair, that's not the end of the world. You're only querying them on a single page, and they're tied by an idea. So that should be fairly quick.
More questions?
Excellent.
Anyone? Anyone?
I have this website for a client that I built just pre-October 2023, and the WooCommerce orders are sort of synchronized with some third-party database that handles them.
Okay.
So, is it safe to actually check the box for HPOS?
It is safe if you're keeping it running in compatibility mode, but it depends on the plugin that you use to make the actual connection. So that part, we need to look over. I'd be happy to help you look.
Yes, thanks.
Anyone? Yes.
Thanks again. This makes us one step closer in migrations from development staging to production.
Yes.
What is the key problem still existing is probably users and the comments. Are there any other things we need to still look out for?
Yeah, action scheduler stuff. Things that got scheduled on the main site that now have to be rescheduled. There will be some CLI scripts on the blog I showed you earlier that will basically check those. But yeah, you can reschedule them and you'll be fine.
More questions?
We also have the challenge that we have, I think, SendCloud or some other parties using the legacy plugin.
My condolences.
Thank you very much. It's also a bit hard to explain to the client why it's a problem.
Yeah.
And to the send party. As you have fixed a few endpoints, are there any plans or from the community or from WooCommerce itself to even update the legacy plugin to a check or whatever to go to high performance storage?
No, but they're fair to do so because there's a really good JSON API in WooCommerce already, and it's running on the regular WordPress API. So this is up to the third parties to update their code and basically get on board with the new stuff. No, this is not coming from WooCommerce. The legacy API is basically a deprecated plugin, even though it's been released for 4 months. Yeah.
Any questions left? No? Oh, thank you then for this marvelous talk. We have a speaker gift for you.
That's lovely. Thank you. Nice.
I didn't see it yet. Well, show it to us what it is.
This is pretty cool. It's a bag.
It's fine. That's nice. You can store your memories in there.
Okay.
Well, Luc, thank you. It's a great talk.
Thank you.
Again, a great talk. Again. Okay, we will have a break in 50 minutes, but before that I will tell you that the next talks will start at 11:45. In the Superspace track, which is where we started, is a talk by Arnold Engelfried called Let's Talk Legal, and that's a talk in English. Over here will be a server-side tracking talk by Niels Olivier, also in English. And in the orange track, there will be a talk in Dutch by Niels Aerts about internationalization. In the community corner, the WeGlot community corner, there you can see a photo booth or be part of the photo booth, and later on there will be some games like chess, skip-ball, Trivial Pursuit and poker. Please also take some time to visit the sponsor booths. Of course, there's new information, and those people are also making it affordable for all of us to attend this beautiful conference. From 12:30 on, swag will be available. It's secret, and I know that the secret have been released, but I still don't know what it is, so for me it's still a secret. You can also do registration for the workshop from product-centered to client-centered communication, although this is also in Dutch. So I will now release you with one question to take your cups with you, your drinking cups, and put them somewhere where they will be picked up by the staff. Thank you so much.